Hi students, I'm Una.
And I'm Scott.
I'm a UK OET teacher.
I'm also an OET teacher from the UK.
We've been teaching students to pass their exams for many years.
And now we're excited to help you pass your exams too.
This is the Swoosh English OET Podcast.
Let's get started.
Are you struggling with your OET exam preparation?
Are you unsure how to reach your target score of a grade A or B? Let Swoosh English help you get there.
Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click the link in the description for your free OET complete guide to writing.
Everything you need to know to pass your OET writing step by step. Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click on the link in the description below.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Swoosh English Podcast. Today we are looking at the OET exam and we're going to look in particular at the reading section of the OET exam. I forgot to introduce myself, didn't I?
What's your name?
My name is Una.
And I'm Scott.
And you're Scott. Okay, so yeah, as I said, today we're looking at the OET reading section of the exam and we're going to get into particular to part A of the reading section.
So obviously every section of the OET examination does have its own difficulties, but reading in particular is one section across any examination that most students will find difficult, and OET is certainly no different.
Yes, if I've ever had any question sessions with students, all I get is reading part C, reading part C, reading part A, you know? All of these kind of questions. They want more tips.
Any reading part B as well?
Yeah,
yes.
Sometimes reading part B. But yeah, I do find out there are a lot of questions about this particular subtest within the OET exam.
Never mind that OET also recently updated the reading section as well, so it is important to be up to date with anything in case you've been studying OET for any significant amount of time, so that you're up to date with everything that OET was going to throw at you for this particular section of the examination. So let's get started talking about what OET reading actually is. So OET reading, as we've mentioned before, consists of three different parts. There's part A, there's part B, and part C. The podcast today is going to focus on part A of the examination. We do think it's adequate to give a full 20-minute episode to talking about how to overcome the challenges of this task and hopefully improve your score.
Definitely.
So part A is 4 texts, and there are 3 different exercises. They are obviously gap fill, matching, and short answer style questions.
Very good. Not in that particular order.
Not in that particular order. Nope. We'll go into more about the order very soon. And it emphasizes both your skimming and your scanning skills.
Yeah, so that's part A. And then we'll just give a little overview of part B and part C here in terms of like how the questions are divided in the reading section in general. So part A, you have 20 questions. And part B, you have 6 questions. And part C, 16 questions. So there are 42 questions in total for the OET exam reading section, and you have an hour to complete this. So it's 15 minutes for part A and 45 minutes for part B and C together.
B and C combined. So quite a subsequent part of the examination, the longest part as well, and there are lots of different things that are going on within it as well.
Lots of different question types, as you said, such as matching sentences, gap fills, providing short answers, multiple choice questions too. And you're being asked to use a variety of skills such as skimming and scanning. That's going to be particularly important for our part A, and we'll discuss that a bit more in the podcast.
So if you're unsure exactly what skimming and scanning is, you look no further. We will tell you exactly what it is upcoming, and hopefully give you some ways to improve these essential skills for this part of the examination.
Yeah, that's definitely something you need to make sure you're working on.
All right. Well, let's now get into an overview of part A. Okay. So part A is known as expeditious reading. So you are given 20 questions in total with 15 minutes to complete it in. So that means you have about 45 seconds per question. That's not a lot of time. Also, the time limit is strict because as soon as that 15 minutes is up, the invigilators will take away that paper
You'll
from
be
you.
Screaming, no, give me my paper back. Anyway, so it's taken away from you at the 15 minutes. And at that stage, you're giving your part B and part C together. But part A is by itself and it's taken away from you after 15 minutes. So it is strictly timed. So that's one of the tips we'll be giving today to make sure that you practice under those time conditions. So the kind of texts then that are that you come across within part A could be, treatment options, daily care, advice given to patients, but no case studies or
articles or journals, which are more common in parts B and C, in which you have to look at documents often pertaining to hospital or care policy, for example. But these are more day-to-day, daily care things that you will come across in your profession.
And it's very important to note that they are also common to all professions, you know. So it is this is applicable to all sections of the reading exam, of course. Common to all professions, stuff, understanding different types and health-related topics that you would come across, you know, in your profession.
So obviously, if you're a physiotherapist doing the examination and thinking, "Oh my goodness, I wish I were a doctor and a nurse," in which every single OET examination course are aimed at, don't worry. As a physiotherapist, for example, or a dentist, you will be able to do these texts on the same level as any other profession, which is great about them.
That's good news. Okay, so then so as we mentioned at the beginning, it's 4 texts, usually 4 texts for this.
There could be 3.
There could be 3. Yeah, we've seen 3 before, but usually 4 short texts, and then you have your 3 different sets of questions. So the first set of questions will always be your matching questions.
Yes.
So what exactly does that involve?
So matching question, you will see approximately 7 question items in which you will see a question, and then you have to match the given paragraph A, B, C, or D to the material that is the paragraph in which answers that question overall.
Yeah, exactly. Where the information from that question can be found. Which text is it found in?
Which emphasizes your skimming skills. We'll get into more of that very, very soon. And then exercise 2 and 3 will either be a short answer or a gap fill or note completion style question. So short answer is you will see a question and you answer it in a few words involving maybe text or numbers.
Yeah, like 1 to 3 words.
1 to 3 words, a bit like the IELTS examination.
Very good. And then your gap fill also, which of course we in our study of English, we will have come across many different gap fill exercises. So hopefully this will, you will have a good familiarity with this kind of question even before you come into the OET exam.
And in case you're not, gap fill exercises is you will see a sentence with some words missing in the middle or the beginning or the end of the sentence, basically anywhere where it is. You have to dictate which kind of information is missing from those sentences with the information you find in the reading passages.
Definitely. So those part 2 and 3, it's testing like kind of specific information that you find throughout the texts. Okay, so where are we going now? I've just lost my train of thought.
So we're now going to move on to talking about exactly what you can do in terms of this information. So part A of the examination involving question completion involves answering up to 7 questions in total. And the other sections are also a similar amount as well too. So obviously totaling up to 20 questions in total.
Yes, and
for
1
this section.
mark per question, definitely. Okay, so should we talk about how it is scored generally in relation to, that A to E score? Like how is it scored? What your level of English needs to be?
So if you've already started doing your OET training, you probably likely have a good understanding about how OET is scored. It is a little bit complicated. It does involve a slightly larger scale and various other sub-factors compared to other examinations. So we'll happily go through the information about the scoring scheme overall for OET examination in total.
Yeah.
So more than likely, you are looking for a B score in every section. You've been told that for your immigration purposes, whether you're a doctor, a nurse, a physiotherapist, or
professional bodies.
For your professional body, you're looking for a B score. But what exactly does a B score entail? It is the second score on the list. We'll just say we'll actually give you a description of what OET describe as fulfilling B style criteria right now, which is a high level of performance, i.e. able to use English with fluency and accuracy, and it's adequate for your professional needs. So it does equate to approximately 7 to 7.5 in IELTS, which is obviously a fairly high score. But how are you able to get a B in reading part A? Well, it's a simple case of your math. There are 42 questions in total for OET reading, of which 20 of those questions are in part A. So in order to get a B overall in reading, you need to get a score of 30 out of 42. That equates to approximately 65% overall, 65 to 70%. So simple math, what's 65 to 70% of 20? It's approximately 14 to 15 to 16 marks overall. That's, of course, if you're only going to aggregate your entire score across the whole section, aka you might do really well in part B and C, but not so well in part A. You could still end up getting that B score, which is 350 in total in your OET mark scheme. So aim for about 15 out of 20 in total
Right.
for
Obviously,
part
aim
A.
for 20. Aim for 20.
Well, aim for 20. Set your
Aim high,
standards.
guys. Come on. Motivation. We can do this.
Okay,
But
aim for 20, but settle for 15. How does that sound?
Yeah, well, that would be good. It would leave you with your B score, which is what we're all looking for. And it's really important as well to say that spelling is really important in part A. If you spell the word incorrectly, well, then you're not going to get the mark. And that's particularly important for obviously your part. The second part and the third part for part A. You know, when you're writing in a particular word from the text, it's really important to get your spelling correct. No abbreviations as well. And you don't need to paraphrase. You don't need to use a different word. I know some of you might have studied, different exams before where you needed to paraphrase. For this section, you do not. You can just use the word that's taken from the text.
And that's important though, because you will see the word as it is, which means you don't have to dedicate as much time to rewording it, because after all, as we've previously mentioned, time is tight, 45 seconds per question.
And another good tip is perhaps for that part 2 and part 3 where you're writing in the word, as you are skimming or scanning, possibly underline the word that that you're going to write in, and that way you can just make sure that you're copying it correctly and you're spelling it correctly. Obviously, don't waste too much time in that if you think it's too time consuming for you to go around underlining things, but ultimately that might help you to write the spelling in
All right,
correctly.
we'll get into more of that about the method now. So let's start talking about the method of this task. A for part A.
Okay.
So remember, you have about approximately 5 minutes on each set of questions overall, giving you 15 minutes. So we'll look at part A, the first exercise, which is your question completion. So
your matching questions.
Matching questions. So which would be the what would be the ideal method for beginning this task?
Students ask this all the time. What should I first do as soon as I go into that exam? And I would say, just as what I tell my students all the time, just start skimming the texts. Okay, there's too many questions for you to look at. And you don't have time to do that. Okay, you need to just start skimming those texts. And what does skimming involve? That is looking for the gist. What is that text about? Start asking yourself questions like, which text is focused on definitions? Which text is focused on procedure? Which text is focused on perhaps medication, and so on? Questions like this. So these are the questions you're asking yourself. What is the overall gist? What are these texts about? Are you struggling with your OET exam preparation?
Are you unsure how to reach your target score of a grade A or B? Let Swoosh English help you get there.
Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click the link in the description for your free OET Complete Guide to Writing.
Everything you need to know to pass your OET writing step by step. Go to www.swooshenglish.com or click on the link in the description below. And I like how you emphasize there that for this task, you're not actually specifying details of this text. You just simply don't have the time to look for the ideal words. So obviously the questions will involve, as Una said, certain key categories or subjects. It could be, obviously, as she said, medication, procedure, whatever it is. Whatever passage you think the key words in that question matching is, try and match them as best from the overall gist of that passage.
Yes.
It is what you have to do for this.
So you're skimming them, then you're having a look at the questions, and from that you're hopefully going to have already a good knowledge of what the topic of each text is, and you're going to be able to start matching the questions to the particular text. So you're reading basically for the overall content, overall purpose. So you need to get lots of practice with your skimming skills.
And also, what can actually help for this section too is looking at headings and absorbing the format. They might actually give clues about what's being contained in a given text, and that will save your time as well. So look for any headings or any subheadings that might come within the passages too. They could give a lot of really easy to pick up clues for what you need to answer in the
That's a really good point.
matching.
Have a look at the overall, structure and content of the text as well, because you might be able to pull out words there. They're going to make it easier to answer those. That first part where you're matching the questions and matching the headings. Great.
Excellent. So obviously skimming all 4 texts in the first exercise will also pay dividends for the next 2 sections as well.
Yes.
So let's have a look now at the following 2 sections, which you're actually using a different set of skills. They are your scanning skills.
Yes.
So what is scanning, Una?
So scanning is going through the text then and basically looking for the information that you're looking for. Okay, maybe that means picking up keywords. You've decided, you need a keyword from the sentence in part 2 or 3, and then you need to look for that keyword throughout. You need to look for that specific information that you want to find.
And that's incredibly important for these 2 sections, because as we know, you are looking for specific information. You, after all, doing a gap fill or a short question completion for this section as well.
And again, this isn't involving reading in detail. Okay, you just don't have time in this task. 15 minutes to answer 20 questions, 4 different texts, you don't have time to be simply reading through them word for word and, really getting a good detailed, understanding reading that way. Okay, you can't do it. So you need to have lots of practice with your skimming and your scanning in order to be able to pick out information, and like the information will jump out at you and you can straight away use it for the purpose you need to, but you can't read word for word and in
No,
detail.
it's completely impossible. You will spend far too much time doing that. So that's why, as we mentioned before, skimming adequately in the first questions will actually pay off a lot of time now. You will pick up some keywords, you'll pick up some ideas from the first time. So, for example, you see a given sentence and you see a certain keywords on a given topic. You think, oh, I remember that text A had a lot of information about that. I'm going to read text A. Because remember, you need to also scan every single text for the answers. They could be located anywhere. That's why it's important to get the understanding of gist. That will save you time now in parts B and
Exactly. What you
parts C.
really want to avoid is looking through a text for a particular question only to find out that actually it's the wrong text. Okay, so your skimming as you said, the skimming that you've done at the beginning will still assist you throughout these tasks, because okay, I can go straight back to that text and find the answer that I need. Okay.
Say, for example, you had a question on diabetes. Your mind should be doing this while you're skimming incredibly quickly. Blah, 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 diabetes, blah, 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 blood sugars, blah, 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 for example. And scanning and only paying attention to the important information that you hear. Then when you find the information, read around it, see what it says, extract it, and put it in. Remember, you also don't have to paraphrase for parts B and parts C.
Moving your eyes, You're moving your eyes very quickly. You just don't have time to, go in really, really a lot of detail. Another thing is, as we said at one point, it's really 45 seconds per question. So should students end up, if they really are struggling to find the particular information for one question, should they spend like 1 to 2 minutes on a question?
Oh no, 100% no.
So how do we avoid this situation? If I'm really struggling to find the answer, like I need to answer the question.
Well, you simply have to move on at that point. For example, maybe you are finding a given question quite difficult. Maybe you haven't done enough practice in your own time under time management conditions. We obviously recommend that you do to ensure you're up to the level, and we'll go into a bit more about that very soon, about what we can offer at Swoosh English regarding that. But it is very important that you do not waste all your time. For example, you're spending 2 to 3 minutes on a given question to continue looking for the answer and get stressed and anxious. Just simply move on to the next question and put that time and effort into getting the marks that you still can. If your time at the very end, you can revisit the question.
Exactly, yeah.
And if not, for example, multiple choice for the first paragraph or the sentence matching section, just write A, B, C, D. Based on your own previous reading or your previous understanding, put any mark down at all. Remember?
Yeah, it's better than wasting so much time, and end up like leaving yourself running out of time at the end and you miss 4 or 5 questions, rather than just missing that most difficult one and then going on to be able to secure more answers towards the end. So that's a really important thing to note. Don't waste too much time on one. Remember, you should roughly be spending about 45 seconds per question. So you don't want to put yourself in that situation where the examiner is coming to take your sheet and you're like, I still have 5 questions or 6 questions to do. That is not going to be good. Okay.
So don't worry, moving on is not necessarily a bad thing. So just to recap quickly, questions 1 to 7 are based on your question matching section. These will involve skimming for the overall information in a given passage and the content.
Yeah.
Questions 8 to 20 will involve you scanning for individual words or phrases, which you can then extract and put into the gap fill or the short answer completion sections.
Specific words and phrases that you want to scan your eyes over and find and then put them in. And so just make sure as well that you're getting the correct spelling. Okay, that's very important.
So shall we finish off now just by going through a few extra tips which students can do in order to improve their performance in Reading Part A?
Definitely, let's do it. So obviously one big thing is just making sure that you are doing mock exams so that you're familiar with the kind of texts that come up again and again, okay? So what kind of, numerical, textual information, how is it presented? And if you are familiar with this, then obviously that's going to be of assistance to you.
Yes, because some of the text can actually involve longer sentences. Some can involve maybe a table with information being extracted. Some of them can even be in shorthand note form as well. So it's important that you are familiar with the different varieties of text you'll have for Part A and how you can get that necessary information and answer the questions answer the questions adequately with it.
Yeah, and while you're doing the mock exams, if you make sure, guys, get your hands on some really a good set of mock exams that you're able to do from an OET preparation provider and premium preparation provider, did I say?
That's the one.
Get yourself mock exams. mock exams are useful, obviously, not only to familiarize yourself with the actual kind of text, but to familiarize yourself with the overall organization of the reading section or the listening section, whatever it is. Make sure that you're going into this exam exactly aware of what it is you have to do, because you don't have time to figure out how you have to answer the question and be making sure that you're using whatever amount of words is
Precisely.
needed. You want to be going into that exam. The only challenge you have to face is the new information in the texts, not how you're doing it. So how the test is organized, you need to have full awareness of this, and you need to have done lots of exams, mock exams and practice questions before you go in.
In addition to this as well, it won't actually harm you doing extra reading outside of OET as well.
Of course not.
You can do more general reading, try and keep it as medical as possible to replicate the text, but as we've already mentioned previously in many podcasts before, and I will personally tell this to you in any class I may teach you in as well, is that you need to be working on your linguistic reading abilities as well. So think about medical journals you can read. You can look at websites, newspaper articles, for example, the British Medical Journal and the ABC Health Newsletter are two incredibly useful sources that you can do in order to read, skim, scan, extract information, and practice those reading skills as well. You might even pick up new vocabulary as well.
Well, that's what I always say to my students, about reading. We're obviously always doing OET mock exams, practice questions, or reading those heavy medical journals, medical articles. But, a lot of you guys are working as well, and then you're coming home and having to do your OET preparation. Maybe some days or, at the weekend, you just want to read something that's a bit lighter, something that entertains you a bit more, that you find less of, kind of work. So that's still going to help you. You never know what kind of vocabulary you might pick up on, and even, sentence structures, things you might pick up on if you're actively reading through something that's a bit more enjoyable for you. For example, just reading blog articles on websites that are on a topic you're very interested in, newspapers, any kind of thing that you're interested in, whether it be politics, finance, this is still going to be beneficial. Don't think that it's a waste of your time.
100% not.
And I just want to pick up on something you said as well about vocabulary. Make sure, guys, I think I say this in every session I have, that you do have a vocabulary journal, that you're adding any new vocabulary that you come across, whether it be medical or not. And, you're writing those words down, and you're writing a definition, writing some synonyms, even considering the pronunciation of the word, because then that will also be useful for your speaking, of course, which we'll do other podcasts on.
Or even reading how a word is said as well, if you have knowledge of the phonemes of the word.
Exactly, really important. So have a vocabulary journal. I can't stress that enough. This will help your reading, because ultimately your reading comes down to understanding the words that are written in the text. Another thing that I wanted to pick up on was making sure that students assess their level, okay?
And how can they do that?
You can assess your level by taking an OET Readiness test. Of course, we have an OET Readiness test on all our packages here at Swoosh English, so you can have a look at those if you're interested. But this just gives you a good idea of where you currently are, How much work is it you need to do in order to get your B in the reading section? And it just means that if you are going into practicing all these mock exams and you don't know what level you're at, well, you're a little bit in the dark, aren't you?
Yes, that way you can actually decide where you are exactly in your studies, how much work you have to do, or even when there's a realistic part, you could do the examination and hopefully move it to your ideal country with your ideal job sooner rather than later. So, of course, these readiness tests that we offer at Swoosh English give an indication of that, and also suggest how much time you might actually need under certain study conditions to acquire that grade that you need. And it just provides a lot more clarity. It shows if you're making progress as well, and it can be a great motivational tool.
Yeah, that's a really good point, a really good motivational tool. Okay, so those are some really good tips. Another thing is to make sure that you are, because, this is quite strict with timing, you make sure that you are doing a lot of practice under those strict time conditions.
So essential.
Yeah.
It might be great if you're getting 20 out of 20. It's not so great if you're spending 2 hours doing the actual examination, because that will not be indicative of your overall score.
Exactly.
So time yourself. I know it's pressure, I know it's uncomfortable, but it is essential for ensuring that you will perform as well as you can on the day of the examination. So
Definitely.
Time conditions with mock examinations, see how quick you're doing, see what sections you're spending more time on, try and analyze why you're spending more time in that as well. And of course, if you find that too hard to decide, then we at Swoosh English will actually give you a lot of suggestions about how you can improve your own efficiency in the exam.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so just want to leave you with the final point of practice your skimming and scanning. For part A, it's so important. So make sure you're practicing that and you're actively reading as you read on the bus, you read wherever you are on a daily basis. Okay, so actively read and practice your skimming and scanning.
That was fun talking about part A. So thanks a lot for coming today, and I really hope that you find this podcast useful and that some of your questions about part A have been answered, and hopefully you can now put into practice what we said to improve your score. So join us again for OET Reading Parts B and C podcast, which will be upcoming very soon to give you a complete idea about how you can ace this part of the examination. Thanks for watching today, guys, and we'll see you again.
See you again, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.